Why do we need to think of possibilities when working in a creative way? I'm not sure I actually agree with the way of framing into, let's say, thinking in possible worlds. I think there are not necessarily possible worlds. I do believe that there's the best possible we can have. And so I will start a little bit, maybe moving away from it and maybe going a little bit theoretical. So I will move to Germany at the end of 1600, and I will go to what Leibniz actually defines for me as a way of looking at possibilities. So according to Leibniz, the world we live in is not the only world, it's just the best compossible world. In fact, there are many possibilities that are compossible to each other, so they actually stick with one another. And the world we're living is just a unifying way of putting compossible possibilities together. So it talks about things that are similar, that work in the same way, and there's a sort of continuity in it. What is really interesting for me is what someone said hundreds of years ago, and talking about the incompossibility, and you're talking about Deleuze mostly. What makes incompossibilities really interesting is that it doesn't look at the congruent factor, at the continuity factor. It looks exactly at the moments of discontinuity. So instead of looking at two possibilities that can make a possible world together, working in an incompossible way looks at the moment in which something rare, something really weird happened. Something in which, I don't know, someone or something doesn't fit in the norm, doesn't fit in the structure of possibility. And that creates a world that is incompossible, so that it doesn't fit together. The point is, we can ask ourselves the question, when we notice that there's this discontinuity, what do we do with that? And in fact, that is the moment in which something different happens. Something can change. So, rather than looking at similarities, it gives us the option of looking at diversity. So of praising and highlighting the fact that diversity is something that exists. So that we don't have to fall into a specific structure that is just the norm and is the compossible way of doing things. And to give a practical example of how this can be possible, or this way of working can help us raising questions, I would like to talk a little shortly about, in fact, my research, what I'm busy with. One thing that seems to be incompossible, is to change the structure of education. And a lot of people would probably say that I'm completely wrong, that this has been done already multiple times, but in fact, this is not really true. We have never really tackled issue in education that made a change radically into the educational system. We have tried to implement, to reframe and rephrase things that were already there. Sometimes we have put it on the level of semantics. But we I intend like in history, in kind of, we have never really changed one thing that for me is quite important, and it's the hierarchy that it's underneath every educational structure. You cannot disrupt the hierarchical relationship between teacher and students. They can never be put on the same level. They're never on a co-creative level. They are not the same. The teacher is there to give knowledge. The student is there to receive it. What happens then is that can be a moment in which something changes. There's something that doesn't fit. And this, for example, is happening right now. And it's the fact that students don't feel represented anymore. Students don't feel like they've been taken care of. They feel like people are not really listening to them. So the question is, again, what do we do with something that is incompossible in the possible world we live in? So we can make an incompossible world possible by listening to that divergent factor, to the diverse factor, to actually make a change possible. So what do we do when divergent factors arise, actually? When something comes up that forces us to deal with different situations. So, like in the example I just talked about, in fact, there are many divergent voices that want a clear change. What we can do, being in a position of power, in fact, because we have to realize that we, and I put myself in there, I am in the position of power, in the position of someone who can do something by listening to these divergent voices. So giving agency to those divergent voices is the key to really think in possible worlds. As long as we keep on thinking in possible world in the same cluster of people who have already expressed their voices multiple times, the world in which we will stay is the least composable ever, in fact. It's a world that will keep on spinning on itself and won't go anywhere further. So if we really want to think in possible worlds, we really have to take the incompossibility factors in and the divergent factor in and be willing to give the testimony, let's say, to someone else to bring forward the changes.